So welcome to day 9 of our freelancing uh, training for beginners. We're almost rounding up. On Monday will be our third day and it will be our final class, and then we can now talk about all the other extras that we expect that you would need to start. So on Monday, we're going to be having marketing for freelancing or freelance marketing. Basically, we're going to teach you the basic stuff about how to use Facebook, WhatsApp at the most basic level to advertise for free until you get to the point where you have the capacity and the resources to be able to sponsor ads, to be able to put some marketing budget down to get to reach your clientele. But in the beginning, we usually recommend that you use the free way of marketing either on Facebook or on WhatsApp to begin with. Then as you grow stronger, we can look at other platforms like maybe Instagram or any other platforms that you think you have the capacity to reach. Because at the end of the day, social media platforms is based off of your individuality because different platforms exist for different kinds of people. So you have to be able to know what kind of persona you have and what sort of platform will be able to attract the kind of customers that you're looking for. So today, we're going to be talking about fees. We're going to be talking about how you charge, what you charge, some of the challenges and unclarity that comes with deciding on fees. So you're starting out your freelancing journey. You're sure you've been thrown into a sea with many fishes, but you do not know what species of fish to catch. And if you do, you do not know what sort of nets will catch them, and all the things that comes with the intricacies of freelancing. But what is key is that if you are sure who you want to approach, then a bit of clarity about what you would charge them would be at your fingertips to some extent. But sometimes you might still be sure about who your clientele is. You might still be sure about who your avatar is. You might still be sure about who exactly you want to serve. But sometimes you might still be a little unclear about how or what you should charge them. So today we're going to be looking at some of the things that you might think about or that you might consider when you're thinking about pricing. So usually when you're talking about pricing, a lot of questions come to mind, or there's a price question that comes to mind. Now, this question, most freelancers and startup entrepreneurs will struggle with when they are just starting out. So it's a normal thing for them to be confused. But what is important is that the answer to this question matters. And if you get this part wrong, you will consistently struggle to get customers. You consistently struggle to get by. Because if the pricing is not right for what you're selling, the tendency for you not to get the customers who are willing to buy is there. Okay. Now, I know this because I have struggled with it. In fact, even now, I'm still struggling with it for new products or new programs or new initiatives that I'm putting out there. Because again, this is not about how professional you are, because you can have somebody who's been in business for donkeys of years, but they have a new product and they're still having a hard time deciding on what to charge. But of course, because some entrepreneurs would have had to experience this or would have had first-hand experience, sometimes if they're already existing entrepreneurs or freelancers, sometimes they don't really struggle with it as much as those ones who are just getting into the space or who are becoming newbies. So the question, what should I charge, will be one of the top questions when you've decided on the products that you want to, or the services that you want to sell. So at the start, you will find that you would most likely undercharge. And like I said, this happens for most entrepreneurs. It happens for everyone. In fact, for some of us, we didn't even charge. Some of us, we started to do what we started to do for free, not knowing that it was a business until people started to request for it more. And maybe family and friends began to say, I mean, you can do this for a fee and all that. And then we started, and in the beginning, like I said, we undercharged because we didn't even know what to charge. So when you're starting out, except of course, you're starting out in a defined industry or in a sector where you're already sure you have all the information that you need. But even at that, you will still struggle, okay? So figuring out how to price your service is one of the most important things that you will do as a freelancer or as a business owner. So you must spend some time tonight, or as soon as you acquire the skill, or when you're sure you're starting out, to begin to think about some of the things or some of the answers you need to have with regards to the kind of pricing that you should charge for your services. Now, let's just give you like about a few tips. These are tips from my experience, or these are tips that I think that based on all the things that I've learned, and as a trainer and as a business person myself, I have a few things that I would want to share with you that will give you some clarity or guidance about how you should charge it. Now, for some people, if you're currently employed, if you currently have something you're doing, maybe you work for an employer or you do something, even if you don't do something, right? But if you currently work, one of the things I want for you to do is to look at what your annual or even monthly salary is. If your annual salary is a certain amount, I rather like to use a monthly salary, because don't forget that as a freelancer, depending on the services that you offer, you will not earn a monthly salary. You will earn probably a daily salary or an hourly salary, depends on what services you offer, right? So let's take that you have a monthly salary. One of the things I would like for you to do is to divide that salary by 30. So if, for example, you're being paid 300,000, right? Now 300,000 by 30 will be somewhere around 10K, right? Is that correct? I think so. So if that's the case, and maybe, for example, you're offering a graphic design service, for example, or you're offering a data entry service for a grocery store close to your house, or whatever it's you're offering a web design service. Now, the fact that you already know that 300,000 is your average salary. Now, I know that this is not the case for everyone, but I'm just using that as an example, right? So if 300,000 is your monthly salary, what we would expect you to do is that, sorry, I have to mute everywhere. If 300,000 is your monthly salary, we would expect you to make sure that there is no day that comes by that you do not do something that earns you 10,000. In fact, I do not even recommend that you do this equation by your exact salary, or if, for example, you are not working, but you have an expectation of the kind of salary you're looking for. So if your expectation is 300,000 a month and 10,000 per day is what that comes to on a daily basis, I would expect you to double it. I would expect you to say, okay, now that I'm freelancing, now that I'm my own boss, it will make sense to earn ×2. Don't forget that we said that you still have the work balance advantage, you still have the free time you have, but like I also mentioned in the course of my presentation all this while, that there are times when you as a freelancer do not even have time. So what that means is that if, for example, you work for 6-7 hours for an employer, and you find that you begin to work as a freelancer and you become that busy freelancer that does not have time, rather than paying yourself 10,000 or 20,000, we expect you to consider earning at least 30,000 a day. So if, for example, you're a graphic designer and you are expected to spend 1 hour on a client's job, target to make sure that you get a minimum of 3 to 4 clients every day, so that on a daily basis, you can work on 3 to 4 graphics and you can make 10K, for example, per one. And if you put that together, you have say between 30 to 40,000. Put that together by the month, you would have been grossing ×2 of what you are earning as a salary earner, right? I'm just using this as an example. I know that most of the people who are here do not even dream about earning 300K. So let's say it's a case of 150K. So 150K means it's 5K every day, right? So consider wanting to earn that ×2 or 3. So if you consider earning 15,000 a month and you're charging people to design a single graphic for 5,000, which is very realistic. In fact, I can challenge you to say that if you start, for example, you're offering a graphic design service, even if you do not advertise online, even if you advertise within your community, you can go to one business or 2 to 3 business every day and tell them, I can design a graphic design that replicates the kind of services you offer here, so you can advertise with that flyer online. It is very possible for every business, any small business, to be willing to give you 5,000 to design a graphic for them, for example, right? So if you are able to do for 2 to 3 businesses per day, and maybe your projection of your salary would have been 150, the tendency for you to make 300, 400, 500 a month by the time you do the equation is very high, right? So please take note that now that you're a freelancer, right, the expectation now is that you are going to be working by yourself. So nobody's going to be pushing you. Nobody's going to be propelling you. Nobody's going to pay you salary at the end of the month. So whatever you do, you must make sure that as you price your service, it grosses to a point where you can be sure that by the time you put all that together, you have a reasonable a monthly salary as a freelancer. But one thing I would also want for you to factor in is the fact that when you're working as a salary earner, there are a couple other benefits. I know that not all jobs have it. In a place like Nigeria, not all jobs have it. There are some jobs that do not have leave because they are private sector jobs, right? You're required to come to work every day for all 300 and something days, right? There are some jobs that do not have health insurance. There are some jobs that do not have, but if you work in a place where there are those benefits, you also want to factor that benefit into what your monthly pay will look like. Now, the second tip you want to also factor in is to know your expenses. So when you're starting out, sometimes it might be a little difficult to know what your expenses is, because if you are going to be offering a digital service, for example, you're going to be using basically your internet, but sorry, your laptop. But there are other expenses. There are expenses like having consistent internet. There are expenses like having electricity. If there is no electricity, there are expenses like you have a generator and you have to power it so you can deliver on the client's job. All of those are your expenses. You need to factor them together, factor them all and put them together. You need to factor in the wear and tear. For example, if you have a generator, in the next 2-3 years, you might need another one, or the servicing part, or however. So count your costs and put that on a document somewhere. If the entire startup cost, sometimes you might think that there's no much startup cost because you didn't buy them all together. Maybe you bought a laptop for 120K some 2 years ago, and then you are buying internet for maybe 5,000 a week, or you are buying, sometimes if you are not careful, you are going to be negligent there will be negligence to spell out or list out those startup costs, because you might be thinking that there is no startup cost because you are working remotely or because you are a freelancer, but they actually are. So factor that all in. Yes, there might not be office rent, okay? There might not be any logistical costs, but there are still expenses, like I said, to get laptops, to get gadgets. If you are somebody who offers a freelancing service that is not necessarily digital inclined, you will need some tools. If you're, for example, a mechanic, or if you're a freelance hairdresser, or if you're a freelance anything, so long as you are going to deliver service to people, there will be tools, there will be gadgets, there will be material. So you want to factor in all of that cost. And by the time you put that cost together, you have to also equate it by the number of days like we did with regards to your income. And that's where you're able to know how to charge so that you don't undercharge, because most freelancers, especially those ones who are not digital based, shoot themselves in the foot. They spend their resources, get all these materials, but when they are charging their clients, they undercharge. For example, somebody's going to make hair for children in their neighborhood, and maybe they will be charging as little as 1,000 when they should charge more than that, because probably they didn't think that they were expensive to the materials, and stuff. And we're going to look at the other things that you should not, pay too much consideration to when you're also trying to choose what kind of fees to charge. Then one of the things also, as much as we say you should count the cost, okay? If you're going to be offering your expertise, your skill, or your talent, you do not necessarily have to be too dependent on the cost to your advantage. Now, the initial one, we said that you should factor in the cost, right? Or you should count the cost, right? You are doing that just so you know the realistic startup or expenses that you have, right? But then don't forget that you are utilizing your skill. Don't forget that you are utilizing your expertise. Don't forget that you are utilizing something that is beyond the physical tools and equipment and materials that you have. Okay, so the materials you use, yes, they can be factored, is okay, but what you should be more concerned about is, after you factored in the materials, you should also check the quality and the value of the output that you're going to be giving to the client. So if, for example, your materials may cost, say, around 2,000, you should not be considering to charge 1,000 extra because you use 2,000 to do the job. No, your expertise cannot even be valued. Or your expertise can be valued, but your expertise should even be valued higher. So if you have materials expenses that cost, say, about 2,000, your expertise should be valued around 3,000. Now, it is difficult to advise you categorically, but what I'm trying to say is that you know the quality of your expertise. If you're going to make hair for the person, you know the quality of the type of hair that you make. So don't be fooled by the fact that because it took you less amount to buy the materials, you're not going to charge without factoring in the fact that the quality of work that you've delivered should even be charged more, than the materials that you expended. I'm trusting that you understand what I mean. So as much as you want to factor in your expenses, or your expenses, please do not also let your focus be mostly on the expenses. Don't forget to factor in the quality and value of work or the output that you're providing to the customer. That also should influence your price, okay? Then again, another thing you should also not be too dependent on is time. Now, your fees do not necessarily have to be solely dependent on how long a job takes. Yes, it's okay. Sometimes you want to factor in that, oh, I came here and I spent 5 days. Oh, I came here and I spent the whole day. And yes, time is money. We understand that, right? But the point we're trying to make here is that there are times when delivering a job or a service to a client might require less time. So if, for example, somebody else goes to make hair and spends 5 hours, you might have the grace of speed to do that same task and even better for 30 minutes or for 1 hour. Now, you cannot say that because it cost you less time to deliver the job, even though the output was quality enough or the end result was what was expected by the client, you are going to now come and say you undercharge because you used 30 minutes or an hour to do it. So like I said, some of us who do writing, for example, there might be somebody who might not be gifted to write, and the person might spend a whole month trying to come up with a business profile for a company. But some of us who have been gifted and who are experienced, who have done this over time, if the person who spends a whole month to deliver it decides to charge, say, for example, 200,000, it does not stop the fact that we who are skilled and gifted and can do it in 2 days can charge 500,000. So do not think that because it costs you less time to do it, then you are going to charge less. No. Though I know that in the world of freelancing, some people, especially those ones who don't live in Africa, charge by the hour. So if you are going to design or be part of a project, the freelancer will usually ask for an hour. But we're going to show you how, or we are going to recommend that you should not focus on charging per time, especially if you are good at what you do. And in fact, in Nigeria, it's not even applicable. Nigerians, people don't, like, for example, if a plumber comes to work in your place, usually you don't pay the plumber by the time he spends. Yes, sometimes you might want to factor it in. We understand, maybe because of you want to put a human face to it. But usually if there is a problem with your plumbing system and the plumber comes to work, you are just meant to pay him for the solution, for the problems that he provided, right? If he decides, okay, if you take your car to the mechanic, for example, now what I'm trying to say is that I know that time is important to be factored, okay? But what we're saying is that charge you for your work based off of the solution that you provided rather than the number of the hours or the period, that you spend to do the work. Because again, if you know your onions, you know your expertise, there's a high tendency that you might be able to deliver the job in a much faster period of time than, longer. So some people are tempted to charge per the hour. And in fact, sometimes it's even difficult to charge by the hour because sometimes you are not even able to be sure exactly how long it will take you. Yes, it might be a skill that you've done over and over and you probably have an idea, the predicted time that it will take you to do the job. But in most cases, it's difficult. Now, as much as I just explained our writing situation, that somebody can spend 1 month to do it and we can spend 5 days to do it, there are times that you will have writing block, okay? There are times that some of your equipment may not work. There are times that if you are a designer, for example, some of the color teams may not sit. These things happen with freelancers, with artisans from time to time. So it might sometimes take you longer, yes, but what the recommended thing that I think from experience to do is to charge for the output, charge for the service, for the quality of service, rather than charge per time, okay? Now, one of the other things you also want to do as a freelancer who is just starting or even who is already existing is you want to check those are already existing freelancers or competitors. So if you know that you probably are just starting or you've started and you are having challenges with being sure about the clarity of pricing to charge, find out what your competitors are charging. Look at the quality of work that they are offering as compared to the quality of work that you are offering. If you think that your work is lesser than theirs or the quality of your work is lesser than theirs, charge a little less than them. If you think that the quality of your work is a little higher than theirs, charge a little higher than them. In fact, it might even be wiser to say, if your work is a little higher than them, start charging about the same price they charge, because the people who are within that your space will look at your work and look at their work and see that you're charging the same price and prefer to pay you that same price for the high quality of work that you deliver. So look at your competitors, look at other freelancers. Sometimes you might even have to engage with them as though you are a customer. I do that a lot. For most of the things that I sell, I chat people who are doing similar things that I'm doing, and I ask them for their cost. And when I look at what they're offering, look at all the parameters or the components of their offering, and I look at mine, it helps me to either increase my price, reduce my price, or try to charge equal. So that way, it will help you as well. Now, you also want to connect and liaise with other newbies like yourself. So if you're a new beginner, if you're a new freelancer and you're just getting into the market, usually before you start, you guys probably would have gotten the same skill on the same platform, or you would have gotten training on the same platform. There might be a common community where you're meeting. It is impossible for you to start a business or start something in a particular industry and not connect with like minds. It's almost impossible. Since I began to do this coaching online program, I have networked with quite a lot of other people who are doing similar things that I'm doing. And I've seen their prices, I've seen how they go about their business, I've seen their modules, and that way I'm able to get clarity about what it is I'm doing, to know whether it is within standard, this is what people within my spheres are doing, or that way it will also help me to get clarity about what I'm doing differently. So connect and layers with other newbies, find out how they're thinking, find out the challenges that they're having, find out what they're thinking and doing about their pricing. That way, by the time you add their own thoughts to yours, you also get clarity about the kind of offering or the kind of fees, to charge your customers. Number 8 tip: offer pro bonos and ask for feedback. Now, when you're just starting off, you need to create a portfolio. You need to tell somebody that you have done something like what you want to do for them for somebody before. Whether or not the person paid you or the person paid you the equated fees, you need to at least be able to prove that you've done it before. So offer your services for pro bono. And when you offer your services for pro bono, ask the people who have consumed that product or who are taking your service, what would have been the fair price that you would have paid if I had not given you this price on pro bono? Ask them for their genuine, honest feedback. Ask 10 people, ask 20 people. Okay, I'm not sure you're going to do pro bono for that much, but you should if you can. But ask them. When you ask them, check what the common denominator is, check what the common feedback is. That way you're able to know the kind of fair price that you think you can charge for the service. Sometimes you can just take your decision to charge a little higher than what they say because you know you're going to go overboard to satisfy your customers. Sometimes you can choose to charge a little lower so you can at least gain some following or some commitment or loyalty from the initial customers before you now decide to up the price a little bit. Okay. Number 9 tips: do some pricing experimentation. Now, if you are not able to access some of the things that Okay, so I don't know why my network went off. I was really hoping that we're gonna do this for 1 minute, for 30 minutes, but it just knocked me out now. So if this goes off, please just join back in so we can continue and then wrap up. I think I'm almost wrapping up, but I don't know why this went off. I don't